I wanted to focus a little bit of attention on environmental regulation and specifically direct some questions to you, Mr. Wood. The Environmental and Natural Resource Division is responsible for litigating environmental and natural resource cases on behalf of the United States, including those that arise under the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and other environmental protection statutes. But I wanted to ask you, prior to your current position, you worked as a lobbyist for energy companies while also advising the Trump campaign, is that correct?
Thank you for your question. I'm very proud of the work I've done as a private practice attorney. And I was, yes, a volunteer, as many lawyers do, for campaigns across the country. I exercised my First Amendment and constitutional right to volunteer for a campaign.
Absolutely, but you were a lobbyist for energy companies as well, is that correct?
I was a registered lobbyist,
Great.
yes, thank you.
Thank you, and in that capacity you represented Southern Company, a utility company that generates a third of its power from coal, is that correct?
I'm not sure of the specific reference that you make there to the statistic, but I did work on behalf of Southern Company and a variety of other clients.
And in 2016, you referred to the Clean Power Plan and other environmental protections as, these are your words, contentious environmental rules that were the disappointment of many in the regulated community. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure where that, apologies. I'm not sure where that quote comes from, but it sounds like something I may have said.
And do you believe that the purpose of environmental protections is to regulate entities? To please regulated entities, to please regulated entities?
No, and I don't think that's the context in which I would have meant that quote. I mean, clearly in this capacity as the acting Assistant Attorney General, my constitutional and statutory duty is to vigorously enforce the laws, and I think as my written testimony and my statement here today shows, we are actively and vigorously doing that across the full spectrum of our statutes, including the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act and every other environmental and natural resources law. We have over 6,000 cases, matters, or appeals that are being really well handled by our team of over 400 career attorneys, and it's been an honor to work with them on that.
That's good to hear, because it does concern some of us that the person that's the head of the EPA has actually sued the agency multiple times around these environmental regulations. So should environmental protections that are contentious, using your word, solely because they're unsupported by a regulated agency still be enforced? I just wanted to clarify that.
Oh, clearly, we enforce every lawful regulation and statute on the books, and we take that obligation very seriously. I do as well, and we will continue to do so in this administration.
Mr. Wood, I respect very much your work, and so please don't take this the wrong way, but there are some who have suggested that the appointment of a former coal lobbyist as the acting Assistant Attorney General of the Environmental and Natural Resource Division is a form of political patronage by the Trump administration in return for millions of dollars in campaign contributions by coal executives and companies to the Trump campaign. And I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that and tell us what you might say in response to many of my constituents who are writing to me about that specific issue.
Right, thank you. I'm very proud of the work I did in the private sector as an attorney representing great clients, and had the opportunity to work on behalf of those clients. And my work is a matter of public record with respect to the filings I've made. And those would reflect that much of my work actually was not in the area of coal, but more so in the area of nuclear. The only other thing I would mention in that regard is that upon my arrival at the Department of Justice, I worked with the ethics officials there and was provided an ethics opinion regarding my recusal obligations. As I mentioned, we have 6,000 or so matters, cases, or appeals. A very small number of those involve issues for which I would have had some involvement previously, and I'm recused from those, and I've abided by that ethics letter, and will continue to do so.
Thank you
for your question.
I appreciate that. I have just a few minutes left, so let me ask one more question. Under the Obama administration, the ENRD prosecuted several coal companies for violating environmental laws. For example, in 2015, Duke Energy pleaded guilty to 9 criminal violations of the Clean Water Act for a massive coal ash spill. Your predecessor, John Cruden, stated that this massive spill, and these are his words, was a crime and it was the result of repeated failures by Duke Energy's subsidiaries to exercise control over coal ash facilities. Will you and the ENRD prosecute similar violations of the Clean Water Act and other environmental laws so that we can be assured that communities in rural areas, urban areas across the country can be protected against things like coal ash spills?
Yeah, Congressman, thank you for that question. I can't speak to any specific case, but you have my assurance that the ENRD continues to vigorously enforce the clean water and clean air laws of the United States. We'll continue to do so, and I think my written testimony accounts for several recent examples in just the past few months where we are doing exactly that. But thank you for your question.
I appreciate that, and I can tell you that communities across the country, including in places like Flint, Michigan, and rural communities that are suffering with toxic situations and death in many of their communities, will be counting on you and your leadership to make sure that we continue to take this extremely seriously and prosecute violations of the law. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much.